Coming up this week, Tesla refreshes the Model 3, Audi reveals the e-tron GT prototype, and Amazon gets Rivian to build them a life-size Tayo the Little Bus. All that and more. Stick around. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and answers to your questions about electric vehicles. There's been plenty to get us excited about this week, starting with a story coming out of Fremont about Tesla's refreshed Model 3s. Tesla doesn't do business like other automakers, we know that, and this extends even when it comes to designating model years for their cars. They don't package changes and improvements into next year's models like the others, they just make changes as they go along. Well, previously, there were reports of the Model 3 getting a bigger frunk in order to allow room for the octovalve and the heat pump that are used in the Model Y, and now this week, it seems like the Model 3 has gotten somewhat of a refresh to its aesthetics as well. A Twitter user going by Whole Mars Blog had visited Tesla's site in Fremont and noticed that the traditional chrome trim on the cars has been replaced with a matte black trim, which mirrors all of the Model Ys that haven't had the chrome trim from the factory. I've always found this to be better looking anyway, and many Model 3 owners have actually covered the chrome trim with a chrome delete to get the same look that Tesla is now providing from the factory. It's a good move. Additionally to that, we've learned that the center console has been redesigned as well. Gone is the glossy black piano-like finish that was prone to fingerprints and scratches, and instead now replaced with a matte black finish with a brushed aluminum accent around the sides, and a faux leather surrounds the console as well. It's definitely a more refined look for sure. And small changes like this can make a really big difference to the look and the feel of a car, and I think both of these are good moves for Tesla. If any of the vehicles was going to be refreshed, we wouldn't have expected it to be the Model 3, of course. We would have expected that more with the S and the X. But perhaps Tesla is waiting on updating the interior for those vehicles when they are getting further along with their 4680 battery production. Either way, it's a good move, and I, for one, am certainly looking forward to seeing how these look in person. Moving on to the big story of the week, Audi has released images and video footage of their e-tron GT prototype, and it is looking good. According to Motor One, Audi provided us all with a first look of the e-tron GT back in March of 2018 when they originally teased the car as a Tesla Model S fighter. The GT debuted later that year in concept form at the Los Angeles Auto Show before hitting the streets to undergo testing while draped in camouflage. Fast forward to this month, and we're getting a better look at the progress they've made, even though it's still not production ready quite yet. The GT is still fully covered, but this time only by a body wrap that doesn't really hide much. And as seen in many spy shots, the production model shouldn't be that much different than the concept before it, with the most obvious changes being the adoption of traditional door handles and the addition of larger side mirrors. In the same vein as the concept, the e-tron GT will have charging points on both front fenders to mirror its sister model, the Porsche Taycan. Audi has only provided close-up shots of the prototype, and the car is a bit blurred out in the videos, but we can still see the front bumper has been modified with smaller air intakes. The fascia looks a tad less aggressive than the 2018 concept, but that's to be expected from a car that's about to transition to the production variant. The rear bumper hasn't changed that much either, with the most notable change being the adoption of parking sensors. Those dual vertical fins are still there, and the general shape of the bumper is similar. Bear in mind that this is technically a prototype, although it should look virtually the same once series production commences. Speaking of which, the e-tron GT will hit the assembly line at the end of the year and is going to be built at the same Bollinger Hoffa facility in Neckarsulm, Germany, where the R8 supercar is manufactured. Audi still isn't willing to go into any technical specifications, but it does mention the availability of a carbon fiber roof. Audi also highlighted to the press that we're lucky enough to be at the event the way the e-tron GT is going to sound. They assure that the creation process of the GT's unique audible signature was carried out with musical creativity and technical competence. And since this car is related to the Porsche Taycan, whose augmented motor sounds are pretty good, expectations are high. A lot of the sound aspect is driven by regulations that state an EV must emit some form of noise in lower speed ranges to ensure that it isn't a menace to pedestrians. These regulations are pretty strict in Europe, with every electric car required to have a front speaker outputting sound between 3 miles an hour and 12 miles an hour, and a rear speaker when reversing. In the US, however, it's even stricter. EVs must emit sounds even when they're stationary and just turned on. But few car makers want some anodyne beep or hum, it seems, and Audi's team even went to the trouble of designing its own composing software and finishing sounds, and has combinations of 32 different audio tracks. All of this means the e-tron GT could be one of the most aurally active EVs on the market. At a standstill, even the Euro-spec cars emit a harmonized low-frequency hum not too dissimilar from that of an idling straight-six engine. From the rear speaker, there's a quiet, high-frequency whine that's more reminiscent of one of those ultrasonic devices used to keep cats off lawns. The interior sounds are more important, though, says Autocar's Lawrence Allen. Where silence is fine in a mainstream EV, for the best sports cars, engine sounds are as easily a defining characteristic as on-limit balance and steering feel. So transitioning from that to battery-powered vehicles requires an entirely fresh approach. It seems more and more EV automakers are really focusing on all aspects of the vehicle, not only the way it feels to drive, and of course with EVs you get that immediate torque, that amazing performance, but also with the way they sound. One of the biggest arguments against EVs up to this point is they cannot sound the way a really nice internal combustion engine sounds, and that has been true. But with Audi here, Porsche, and then of course I believe I mentioned recently with the Mach-E, sound and the way these cars incorporate sound is becoming a big part of the overall experience. So what do the numbers look like for the GT? Well, Audi claims on their webpage 590 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time in less than 3.5 seconds. All-wheel drive performance from dual electric motors and a top speed of nearly 150 miles an hour. Audi also claims a 248-mile range on the WLTP test cycle, though in more exciting news, an RS version has already been confirmed even though the standard model is not properly out yet. Not only that, but it will be unveiled alongside the regular e-tron GT later this month. That exciting disclosure was made by Audi's global boss, Markus Duesmann. He said, quote, "We are taking things another step further. I am pleased to announce today that there will also be an RS version of the e-tron GT, which will be launched together with the e-tron GT." End quote. The Audi e-tron GT should arrive in the United States at some point in 2021 and carry an estimated starting price of around $100,000. So what do you think? Is this a Model S fighter? Or like its cousin, the Porsche Taycan, will this just be an ice killer that complements the Model S and furthers the mission to sustainable transportation? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, and on to my favorite story this week from Electrek. Fred Lambert reported that Amazon has unveiled electric delivery vans made by Rivian, and we get to see its cool interior for the first time as well. Last year, Rivian took a $700 million round of funding led by Amazon, and at the time, they were discussing opportunities to work together. A few months later, we learned that one of those opportunities is building an electric delivery van for the online retail giant. Amazon then announced that it will buy 100,000 electric delivery vans from Rivian. This project is one of the biggest of its kind and would represent one of the largest deployment of electric vehicles in the world. It's also an order that's likely worth over $4 billion for Rivian, which is massive for a startup company. Amazon announced in a press release this week, quote, "Just a year since announcing the climate pledge, Amazon is excited to reveal its first custom electric delivery vehicle designed and built in partnership with Rivian," end quote. Now, my first impression, as I made clear at the top of the show, is that the face of the van looks like it was designed by the art team for Tayo the Little Bus, kids show. And I mean, the two round headlights, like beady eyes, and a thin, flat grille that looks like it's going to start talking to you. I mean, Amazon's logo is, after all, a smile, so maybe we shouldn't be a bit surprised that this van looks so friendly. The livery for the van is completely Amazon branding, making it very much an Amazon delivery vehicle instead of a Rivian vehicle. RJ Scaringe, Rivian's CEO, commented on the electric delivery vehicles, saying, quote, "The vehicle we've developed with Amazon is not just electric," even though it is just electric. But I think he means to say that it's much more than just an electric vehicle. Sorry, tangent. He goes on to say, "We prioritize safety and functionality to create a vehicle that's optimized for package delivery. We thought through how the drivers get in and out of the van, what the workspace feels like, and what the workflow is for delivering packages," end quote. And Amazon has released a list of features about the van. It's going to have a state-of-the-art sensor detection, a suite of highway and traffic assist technology, and a large windshield to enhance driver visibility. Exterior cameras around the vehicle are going to be linked with a digital display inside the cabin, giving the driver a 360-degree view outside the vehicle. Not surprising, Alexa will be integrated for hands-free access to route information and the latest weather updates. It will have a strengthened door on the driver's side for additional protection, and what they're calling a dance floor inside the driver's cabin for easy movement inside the van. Bright taillights surrounding the rear of the vehicle to easily detect braking. Of course, that's when you're talking about safety, obviously brake lights are going to be a part of that. I'm not sure why they decided to bullet point that specifically. And then they finished the list with 3 levels of shelving with a bulkhead door, which can be easily opened and closed for additional driver protection while on the road. Amazon says that Rivian should start production of the electric delivery vans as early as next year and have 10,000 vans on the road as early as 2022. All in all, 100,000 vehicles on the road by 2030. Now, personally, I don't think this can happen soon enough. Delivery vehicles are on the roads all day long, and we know that when stopping to drop off a package, they just sit there idling and polluting. So this segment, delivery vehicles, needs to be transitioned to electric as quickly as possible. I myself am excited to see the reveal, and I cannot wait to see one of these pull up to my house and drop off my packages. Most of the people that are looking forward to October 20th of this year are probably doing so because it's the start of the World Series. Naturally, as Mark Kane from Inside EVs points out, we know baseball and hot dogs go together. But this year, we can add something new: electric trucks. Less than 2 weeks left to the world premiere of the all-new, all-electric GMC Hummer EV. That's right, GM is reviving the Hummer brand. Now, this is going to happen on October 20th during Game 1 of baseball's World Series. And there is little doubt that GM picked the date not by accident, as in 2019, last year, some 12 million viewers watched the game, according to media reports. This year, baseball fans will also see the electric Hummer pickup truck. Reservations will be opened immediately, although production at the Detroit assembly plant is scheduled to start in fall of next year, so they've got a full year to wait for the vehicle. Phil Brook, vice president of GMC marketing, said, quote, "We cannot wait to finally reveal the GMC Hummer EV. We are leaving no stone unturned on reveal day. In terms of audience reach, we anticipate this will become one of the brand's most ambitious standalone campaigns ever," end quote. Some of the targeted specs for the GMC Hummer EV, they say it will have up to 400 miles of range. It is going to use GM's Ultium batteries, their new batteries that they've been developing. It should have 1,000 horsepower and, more notably, 11,500 foot-pounds of torque. That is just crazy. Being a very big and heavy pickup truck, the next bullet point is very surprising to me. They say it will have a 0 to 60 acceleration of 3 seconds. I am not sure that's important for their target audience, but either way, it's impressive, and maybe that's just to win over the truck guys. I don't know, but 3 seconds in a Hummer EV, I would hope that they've really developed the braking system to be able to stop very quickly as well. They say the vehicles will also be equipped with a whole bunch of stuff that I really don't know a lot about, and certainly requires a little bit more of an elaboration at some point. Adrenaline mode, crab mode with rear steering wheels, the Ultium batteries, super fast charging, but no specifics on specs for that. The next generation of Super Cruise, which is GM's autonomous vehicle driver assist package. An infinity roof, which I can only assume is like a large glass roof, but then the next bullet point says modular sky panels. Not sure what that all means. And ultra vision cameras. So specifically there, what is ultra vision? I honestly need to look into this a lot further, but either way, it could just be marketing. It's very exciting. Finally, the American brands are stepping up to really take the whole EV truck seriously. Of course, Ford's been doing that with the F-150, but now GM with the GMC Hummer EV. Welcome to the stable, if you will. I am really not interested in baseball, but I might look afterwards at the official reveal. Well, I will look afterwards at the official reveal, and I would encourage you guys, if you're baseball fans, keep an eye out for ads during the game and the reveal of the Hummer EV. All right, and the last bit of news this week is an update to the great work done by Israeli EV platform maker REE. In a video they released on YouTube, they show all 3 of their EV platforms driving around a track in the Israeli desert. And unlike other automakers that have been working to focus on designing the whole vehicle and then get that to production, REE went out to just focus on the foundation, the skateboard platform design, and then left the building of the vehicle to other companies. And other companies have taken to the idea, specifically Hino and Mahindra. They already have deals with REE. The 3 different platform configurations are designed for different use cases. The P1 is meant for low gross vehicle weight, a little bit more than a ton, and it should be used for last mile urban delivery vehicles. Plans to make it fully autonomous should make it easy for small city spaces. The P2 can create cargo and passenger vehicles with up to 2.5 gross vehicle weight, and then the P4, which is their largest, is up to 4.5 tons gross vehicle weight, and that's a bet that the company has for the North American delivery market. All of them can have multiple configurations. Now, the way they're put together, they have 4 corner modules that are then bolted onto the skateboard design, where the battery pack is going to be. And the good thing about having those corner modules is that they allow the vehicle to not only have power at all its wheels, a motor, suspension, everything integrated at all 4 corners, but all of the wheels have the ability to turn as well, so that should make them really easy to maneuver in tight city spaces. That can make a huge difference when talking about delivery time and delivery vehicles. It also makes a huge difference for repair work, where if one of the modules gets damaged, it can actually just be swapped out in as little as 15 minutes for a replacement. There is no doubt in my mind that they have what it will take to be a successful business model when it comes to product. I don't know about the way they run their business, but I like their product, and I'm really excited to see that they've made some great progress, and I look forward to hearing more about the work that they have going. All right, so that is all for the news, but before I get to a couple of announcements and the Endy bits, I am very excited to share with you some EV questions that I got to answer this week. Last week, I was on a panel that was put on by the Solar United Neighbors, which was an EV Ask Me Anything style Zoom event. And naturally, as there's some crossover between solar owners and EV owners, they put the event on to help educate more people about electric vehicles. So myself with Blair of Generation 180 and a Tesla owner, we were all happy to field the questions of the participants. And after the event, I did get a number of questions, of which I wanted to share with you 2, and I'll answer them in case you might have the same question that they did. The first comes from Kathy, and she says, quote, I am planning to buy the Chevy Bolt, but I won't have a lot of money left for high-dollar electric. I will install a level 2 charging system in my garage, but would like to know which public charging stations are most reasonable to hook into and which phone app I should download and utilize, end quote. So my response would be simply, thinking about charging and in addition to which EV you want to buy is very important. Luckily, the answer to this one is very easy. Many level 2 public charging stations are free. Very few of them actually charge. But nearly all DC fast charging stations will charge. So my suggestion is look into the charging networks directly and see what their rates are in your area. Unfortunately, rates change based on location, so your rate may be differently locally than that of a charging station if you were to go on a road trip out of state. The big suggestion would be simply to download the PlugShare app. It's a great resource and allows you to customize the charging station shown based on your vehicle choice and plug type. Additionally, on the EV resource webpage, we do have a section where you can see charging apps and see many of the other ones that are available. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. The next question came from Richard, who said, quote, "My Tesla Model 3 costs 6.5 cents per mile traveling and 1.5 cents per mile to charge at home after hours. Does anyone have different numbers or experiences with other brands of EVs or networks?" End quote. Now, this question requires a lot of math, and it was certainly a lot harder to address, but here's kind of what I came up with. You kind of have to approach this from a generic position, as the answer depends a lot on the efficiency of the vehicle, as well as electrical rates wherever somebody might live and plug in. In addition, some electrical providers will actually provide different rate structures to EV owners than what you can just look up and find that they provide to everybody generically. But if we look at the cost per kilowatt hour from an energy provider, we can find that information broke down as an average state by state on a webpage. It's paylesspower.com/blog/electric-rates-by-state. Don't worry about that. I'll put that link in the show notes as well, so it'll be easy to find. But in this case, I took Indiana as an example. We can assume that the cost to charge at home would be 11.87 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the average in the state of Indiana. So we can round that up to, let's say, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, not taking into account losses from charging, because this can vary very dramatically from charger to charger and even home to home based on the integrity of the electrical circuit and how efficient the vehicle takes the energy from the wall and actually puts it into the battery, because there's losses kind of at every segment of the way. We can still kind of just shove that to the side and ignore it for a second and use the 12 cents per kilowatt hour and apply that to any given vehicle. Now, I know with Teslas, they use a watt hour per mile calculation in terms of what's shown, and that's what the EPA uses for their estimates, but I prefer using a miles per kilowatt hour calculation that many EVs use, including my own Chevy Spark EV. Either way, whichever way you go with it, it's just math to convert it from one way or the other. So let's take a look at 4 common EVs, and we can find their efficiency numbers at fueleconomy.org. So let's look at those 4: the Chevy Bolt, Tesla Model 3, a 2019 Nissan Leaf with the 40 kilowatt hour battery, and a 2019 Hyundai Kona electric. Now, the Bolt is rated at 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. So taking that 12 cents, dividing it by 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour, that gives us 3.3 cents per mile. The Tesla Model 3 is rated a little bit more efficiently at 4 miles per kilowatt hour. So then that would bring it down to simply 3 cents per mile. The 2019 Nissan Leaf is actually the worst of the bunch, rated at 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So that is 3.6 cents per mile cost. And then the Hyundai Kona electric is rated very similar to the Chevy Bolt, so at around that 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour energy usage. So breaking that down would then be 3.3 cents per mile. Now, obviously, these numbers are going to change depending on where you live. We're using Indiana as an example, that 12 cents per kilowatt hour. If you pay less or more, obviously, that's going to change the cost per mile estimate of these cars. But Richard said that he's getting 1.1 cents per mile in his Tesla by plugging in at home. So that is doing much better than the 3 cents per mile that's rated. So that is fantastic. And I think that just goes to show that individual experiences are going to vary quite a bit. My guess is, and I haven't actually verified this with Richard, but my guess is he's driving the vehicle a lot more efficiently than how the EPA test does that. So plugging in at home makes it somewhat simple, but as far as traveling, the math gets much more complicated, as I kind of mentioned for Kathy's question, because each charging network has different rates and even different methods of charging based on where they are. Some states do not allow the networks to charge based on kilowatt hour unless you're a utility. So the networks like EVgo and Electrify America must charge based on time plugged in and charging. Well, this ultimately penalizes vehicles that don't charge very quickly and then provides a benefit to those who can charge more rapidly. So I know that is a lot of information to basically give somewhat of a non-answer, but I hope for Richard's sake and for all of you that it helps explain the situation. The best thing to do when looking at real-world efficiency of any vehicle would be to ask current owners and get a realistic average. However, keep in mind that everybody is going to have different experience. I will use myself as an example. My 2016 Chevy Spark EV is rated also at 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. But in good weather, while driving efficiently, I've seen easily more than 6 miles per kilowatt hour. So my actual cost per mile would be nearly half of what you would estimate based on the EPA rating. So when it comes to efficiency, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers. Ultimately, if you're looking at buying an EV, go off the EPA ratings, talk to existing owners, see what they say. And of course, if anybody has a question about EVs, you can always reach out to me at hello@ev-resource.com, and I'm more than happy to tackle it the best I can and give you an answer. So one quick announcement before I say thank you to our supporters of the show. EV Resource has launched a new service for those that are in a Central Virginia area, so within 100 miles of Richmond, and that's only because I can't afford to take time to drive, much further than that. But it is a battery state of health verification for used EVs. Buying a used EV only to find out that it fell short of your expectations should never happen, and we want every used EV buyer to be confident and comfortable with their purchase. So our independent verification of the vehicle's battery will let you know exactly what to expect when considering a used EV, putting you at ease. If you've found a car that you want to buy and the dealership or the seller does not offer the EV verification, ask them to provide that. Or if you have an EV to sell, you can request a report right now. As I mentioned, the service is only available within 100 miles of Richmond, Virginia, so please email me if you are outside of that service area. But every report is going to include the battery state of health as a percentage, the current battery capacity compared to what it would have been when the EV was new, and then an estimated range that you could expect to get on a full charge. If you want more information on that, you can head over to the webpage ev-resource.com/verification. I'll also put that in the show notes as well. Well, that is it for this week. Thank you, as always, to everyone who supports the show, either by simply listening or sharing with your friends. Please do that, especially your friends that might be very new to electric vehicles. I want to be that resource for them. Always a big thank you to those that support us on Patreon. You can find us there at patreon.com/evresource. Our Patreon executive producer is Tom Wiggins, and our producer is James Hart. Special thanks to our partner of the podcast, Titan Auto and Tire, for their support. Titan is one of the very few independent shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs, and from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. If you have a question about electric vehicles or any kind of feedback for the show, I invite you to email me at hello@ev-resource.com. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe so that you'll get the future shows delivered to you automatically. If you want to listen to the audio-only version of the podcast, you can find all of the previous shows on the webpage under the podcast section and on many of the major podcast platforms. But that is all, so thank you very much for being with me, and I'll catch you all next week.